Welcome to today's Explainer. Let's jump right in. We're looking today at a moment in history that literally tore a city, a nation, and honestly, the entire world right down the middle. The story of the Berlin Wall isn't just about concrete and barbed wire. It's the story of an overnight shock to the system that changed millions of lives in the blink of an eye. For nearly 3 decades, this massive structure defined the global geopolitical landscape, but to truly wrap our heads around it, we need to look at the immediate, human reality of how this all started.
I want you to really put yourself in the shoes of an everyday Berliner in August of 1961. Imagine going to sleep on a totally normal summer night, only to wake up the next morning and find a giant physical barrier cutting right through your neighborhood. I mean, it sounds like something straight out of a dystopian novel, right? But this was a sudden, terrifying reality. The streets you walked every single day were suddenly barricaded. Transit lines were just severed. There was no warning, no public vote, just an overnight fracturing of a major global city.
And this division, it completely ignored the logistics of daily life. For millions of people, everything was thrown into pure chaos. Your school might suddenly be on the other side of that barrier. Your job, inaccessible. And worst of all, friends and family members were just instantly out of reach. People woke up separated from their loved ones, literally unable to cross the street to see them. It was a complete slicing in half of livelihoods and communities overnight.
Section 1. The Cold War Chessboard.
So to understand how a massive city gets carved up overnight, we've got to rewind to 1945, right in the immediate aftermath of World War II. The victorious Allied powers divided Germany into occupation zones. Now, Berlin itself was located deep inside Soviet-controlled territory, but it was so crucial that the city was also carved up among the powers. Berlin wasn't just a divided city, it was the ultimate flashpoint. You had two deeply opposing worldviews, the Soviet Union and the Western Allies, effectively trapped together in a single metropolis. It was the absolute center stage where this global rivalry played out.
And almost overnight, two entirely different realities took root side by side. To the west, you had a burgeoning democratic system supported by the Allies, and to the east, a Soviet-backed communist state, officially known as the German Democratic Republic. Think about that. You literally had two different worlds sharing the exact same city streets, operating under completely incompatible political and economic systems right next door to each other.
Now, back in the 1950s, Berlin still had open borders, and because of that, it acted as this massive escape valve. Facing severe economic struggles and mounting dissatisfaction with the government, millions, literally millions of East Germans just packed up and walked across the city limits into West Berlin, using it as a gateway to escape and eventually move over to West Germany.
But here's the absolutely crucial part. Who exactly was leaving? This wasn't just a random migration. It was a devastating brain drain. The people fleeing East Germany in droves were highly educated professionals. We're talking doctors, engineers, teachers, and essential skilled workers. So they weren't just losing citizens. This was an existential economic crisis for East Germany. They were hemorrhaging the exact workforce required to run a functioning society. It was completely unsustainable, which prompted the government to decide that immediate drastic action was necessary.
Section 2. Life behind the wall. The East German government solution escalated terrifyingly fast. It didn't start as that massive concrete monolith we always picture. Actually, in the early hours of August 13, 1961, Step 1 was just soldiers rapidly unrolling barbed wire across roads and railway lines to slam the border shut. But soon after, workers replaced that wire with Step 2, a rigid concrete wall. And it didn't stop there. Over time, it escalated into Step 3, becoming a heavily militarized zone reinforced with guard towers, intense floodlights, patrol roads, and complex alarm systems. It became an absolute fortress.
155 kilometers. That is almost 100 miles. Think about the sheer, massive scale of that. It eventually strangled West Berlin, completely cutting it off from the rest of East Germany. It was basically a fortified island deep within Soviet-controlled territory. And crossing this 155-kilometer perimeter without official permission was strictly illegal. East German border guards watched the entire stretch day and night, turning the city into a constant military patrol.
But you know, the human desire for freedom is just incredibly persistent. With the border closed, people turned to staggeringly desperate and honestly genius methods to bypass the barrier. There were incredibly daring escapes. People spent months digging hidden underground tunnels. Some built homemade hot air balloons from scratch to literally float over the guards. Others modified their cars with secret compartments just to smuggle people through checkpoints. And while some of these incredible attempts succeeded, Others tragically didn't. Many people lost their lives or their freedom simply trying to cross the street.
Section 3. Symbol of the Cold War. As all of this unfolded, the wall quickly became the ultimate physical manifestation of the Iron Curtain, a stark, concrete visual of the division between Eastern and Western Europe. Because of this massive symbolic weight, world leaders recognized how important it was to speak directly to the people of Berlin. Like in 1963, when U.S. President John F. Kennedy visited West Berlin and delivered a speech declaring, "Ich bin ein Berliner," meaning, "I am a Berliner." It was a powerful, unmistakable message of Western solidarity, basically telling the people surrounded by this wall that they were not forgotten.
Jump forward a couple of decades, and that momentum continued to build. In 1987, U.S. President Ronald Reagan stood right near the Brandenburg Gate and delivered a direct, unforgettable challenge to Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev. He said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." These pivotal moments kept the international spotlight glaring on the unnatural division of Berlin, and it really accelerated the momentum toward the rapid, unexpected changes that were fast approaching Eastern Europe. Section 4. The Dramatic Fall. So, by the late 1980s, the political landscape of Eastern Europe was really shifting beneath the surface. Soviet reforms were spreading, and in East Germany, citizens were loudly demanding democracy and the right to travel freely through massive, peaceful demonstrations. But the actual tipping point on November 9, 1989, it didn't come from a battle. It literally came from a bureaucratic blunder. During a highly confusing press conference, an East German official accidentally suggested that newly drafted travel rules would take effect immediately. The result? Thousands of East Berliners instantly rushed to the border crossings. The guards were completely overwhelmed, lacked any clear orders to use force, and simply gave up and opened the gates. The dominoes fell immediately, leading to a fully reunited Germany by October of 1990. The scenes from that night on November 9th are some of the most absolutely euphoric in modern history. People from East and West Berlin, separated for decades, just flooded through the checkpoints. Complete strangers were hugging each other in the streets. People climbed right on top of the heavily guarded wall, dancing and cheering. They brought hammers and chisels from their own homes and started physically breaking pieces off the concrete. In one night of joyous chaos, nearly 28 years of painful division finally came to an end. It wasn't just the destruction of a barrier, it was the collapse of an entire era.
Today, the Berlin Wall is mostly gone, with only small sections remaining as historical memorials. The wall was born from fear, division, and political conflict, sure, but its dramatic fall became a lasting symbol of freedom, hope, and human unity. So I'll leave you to consider this question. When we look at history, what does the fall of the Berlin Wall teach us about the ultimate fate of artificial divisions imposed on human beings? Can any wall, no matter how heavily guarded, permanently suppress the human desire to connect? Thanks for joining me for today's Explainer. I hope this gave you a much clearer understanding of this incredible moment